My name is Jonathan Opp. I'm going to talk today about a crazy idea that we had. 5,000 miles, 18 stops, driving in a rented and branded RV across the United States from Raleigh to Maryland to San Diego to Portland, all in the span of about 19 days. We called it the Red Hat Road Tour. Now, I was at Red Hat for about 11 years, and at the time in 2002, we were a small company competing with companies many times our size. We didn't have a lot of branding resources, marketing dollars to spend. But what we did have was a very passionate user and developer community. So our goal was to go and meet them where they are. And understand the model for Red Hat was very disruptive in its nature. It's an open source software company. And that was the entire spirit of the tour. We had to build this brand in a very different way. So we sought out to go and meet the community where they are in their user group meetings, in university computer labs, and casual meetups across the country. So going on this tour with me were 3 Red Hat technical experts, a driver that we very quickly gave the nickname Cookie, and it stuck. And my job on the tour was to tell the story of the tour each day with a set of tour journals that we would post on our website. And my role was to really go out and to meet people and have conversations and tell the story along the way. So we noticed a few things that started to happen along the course of this tour. One of the first things we noticed is that more and more people were continuing to come to the events, and it started to surprise us. But the other thing that I really love is people started to come up to us and talk to us as though they knew us. And they did know us. And that was the really cool thing about it, because they had been reading about the adventures along the way. They had been reading about the awful rest stops, the bad diner food we were eating. They were listening and reading about the times when the RV nearly blew us off the road, and we thought we weren't going to survive the tour. But what was so cool about it was all the relationships that we had built along the way and the stories that we were able to tell. One of the most memorable nights on the tour came in Kansas, when our event that night was to be at a brewery. And we weren't supposed to have a lot of people there that night, but we ended up having about 100 people there waiting for us by the time we showed up. And that night, we met 2 system administrators who had taken the day off to drive 5.5 hours all the way from Iowa just to meet a few guys in a bar, hang out with a beer, and talk about some of the same things that they are passionate about. And I'll never take that kind of community participation for granted again. Now, that night on the tour would end as so many nights on the tour would. We had to leave a lot earlier than we would have liked because our next stop was 550 miles away in Denver. We said goodbye, and we went off down the road, and we drove as far as we could. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, we stopped at the first motel that we could find that was open. And we'd split up into 2 rooms, and I went in my room, and my tour mate, James, he put the key in the door in his, and he swung open the door to find his room was already occupied by naked people. So the first lesson I learned on the tour was what the chains on your door of the motel room are for. The second lesson was one of my favorite marketing sayings. It's applicable in marketing, branding, community building, and that P.T. Barnum said this. I love this. Nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. The other thing we learned was that communities need catalysts. They need people to bring them together, to help them articulate a shared purpose, to help them on that road to discovering who they are. And in order for your community to really grow and to really gain in the level of participation where you're getting people to act on their own, it helps to have 2 important ingredients when you're creating this movement. Symbols, first of all, and stories. Now, symbols, they're all around us. Ones that are very common to us that are created within an organization, or logos on the side of RVs going down the road. But there are some symbols that emerge from the community itself. Symbols like 99%. Nothing draws a crowd like a crowd, but the most powerful symbols can turn that crowd into a chorus. The other ingredient is stories. Stories are universal to the human experience. They are part of who we are. They're how we relate to each other. And we've been telling our stories and expressing ourselves and writing on cave walls for thousands of years. More recent example, Cam Raleigh is a art museum. It's a contemporary art museum that last year reopened in downtown Raleigh. And what's unique about this museum is that they don't have a permanent collection like a lot of museums do. They're always changing out their art. It's always new. It's always fresh. It's the essence of contemporary. In the course of telling their brand story, what they had discovered was that the building that they were occupying had its former life, this 19th century building, as a produce warehouse, where it was a cold storage facility where goods were moving in and out in a constant state of activity. So these stories become just valuable resources that you can use to help create an experience